Are you tired of wasting time on entertainment that doesn't bring you a sense of community? Do you feel like people are trying to force you to take a side in this silly culture war? Does your media have you feeling too conservative, too woke, too religious, too heathenish, not enough whatever, like a freak? That's because you're not a caricature. You're a real person. You're messy, and you don't fit into a box. Good news, we're freaks too.
Would you like to melt your stress away? Get connected to a community of other misfits? Maybe listen to the Misfits? Stop feeling like a lonely outsider surrounded by people trying to enlist you in a war you want no part of. Become a contented member of a community that requires only that you live your best life and leave others to live theirs.
Feel a sense of belonging while opting out of the culture war. This is Peace Freaks. How is everyone doing? Welcome to Peace Freaks, episode number... What episode is this? Oh, that's right, number 97. We're approaching that number 100 episode. Liz, how are you doing today?
I'm excited about approaching that 100th episode. It's been a journey, man.
It's been a little bit of a journey. Technically, we're actually well past 100 episodes because I don't count
know.
any of the ones before we joined the Launchpad.
I know.
Johnny's still cranking out the episodes over there, by the way.
I appreciate Johnny. Johnny is awesome, and I'm glad he's still cranking out episodes.
I am too. I'm glad he's doing his thing. We just kind of felt like our thing was someplace else, I guess. And you got nothing for me on that, do you?
Our moon was in another house. Our princess was in another castle.
You've been hanging out with too many of those people lately, I think.
Our princess was in another castle. Is that a better?
The princess is always in another castle.
That's just the way that game works.
So we are up here in the lovely Cleveland, Ohio, and it's been a little weird lately. I luckily got called by my boss saying, hey, we'd like you to come do some more work because we have work for you to do. And I'm like, sweet, I'd like to pay some more bills.
Yeah, thank God for that. The idea of actually getting out from under a little bit of stuff might give us some more options. That's pretty cool. I'm okay with that.
I love the idea. I love the idea of not owing everybody and their brother $10 billion.
Basically, yeah.
So excited about that. Not excited about the protests that were 8 blocks from our house last night.
Yeah, that was like a moment of okay, well, how are you going to, think of people who are interested in actually putting some physical action, putting their bodies in a space to say that this is important to us and we're going to protest. Do I expect them to, just wreck up shit? Or do I expect, bad things to happen?
I prefer bad things don't happen to people at all.
I do too. And, not that I'm even suggesting that the protesters per se are necessarily the people wrecking up shit. Just seem to kind of happen in the same places.
You keep saying wrecking up stuff, and then I'm just thinking about Futurama. And,
Okay.
Nixon.
Nixon.
Yeah, because Nixon's head, always talks about coming in and wrecking up the place.
Okay.
It's pretty fucking funny.
It sounds pretty funny.
Yeah, but 8 blocks from the house. Luckily, they didn't come up here. Know if we'll be so lucky in the future. Still got all the curfews and stuff in effect, which is, what I expected given how the world's moving.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when I was doing the editing for this podcast in particular, some of the stuff we're talking about, it's like, oh my God, it just feels like worlds away.
Yeah.
And we didn't record the episode that long ago.
Well, it's there's a level of weirdness, and then we somehow reach another level of weirdness, and, it makes that level look like, oh, you thought that was weird. Well, hold my beer.
I feel like that's all life does these days is say, hold my beer.
Yeah.
Not that it's anything I didn't ever expect, because it's always been pretty expected the whole time, but
Yeah.
how have you been dealing with it?
I just kind of try and focus on what is important to me and trying to support my friends and figure out where I want to stand and stuff like that. Yeah, it makes you think about what's important, doesn't it?
Well, it makes me think about how I'm probably not going to be performing music in our future much.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's yeah, none of these things have made any of that any easier. So probably not the thing you'd want to be looking forward to doing all the time.
Just gotta get where we can move the hell out of the city. As we're sitting here, I'm thinking, the reason we live in a city is so that I can play gigs. But if there's no gigs, why the hell do I live in a city?
Yeah, there is that.
Let's go start our forest garden out there somewhere.
And I've found some interesting things through this. The idea of just starting an economy for people who don't want to deal with the economy that may or may not have racial biases and stuff. I can get behind that.
Oh, I see. Was that a veiled threat?
No.
Are you threatening me, Liz?
No, that was not a threat at all. That was just basically saying, like...
Are you trying to turn me into one of those people in those stupid videos online where they make
Oh,
the
good
white
Lord.
people dance and roll over and shit?
I don't know anything about those videos, but they sound awful. Anything that is about, like, one human basically making another human perform things for no good reason, like, that seems creepy and wrong to me. So I don't really know what you're talking about there. But yeah, that wouldn't be something I'd be hoping to perpetuate personally.
Yeah, me neither. Well, listening back to this interview, I will say, doing the editing gave me a lot of hope about some things. Cory seemed hopeful.
Yeah.
So that's something. I just gotta keep on keeping on. Keep heading the path.
Yes, and
Get my shit straightened out. Stop being a fat piece of shit. Buy Bitcoin. Move to the country.
Well, I mean, if we're all kind of working on being responsible for ourselves, and also the government wasn't just going around futzing with people, just make it all so much easier.
I guess. Well, I think we'll take that moment and we're gonna head on into the interview.
Yeah.
After this song.
She was a voodoo Indian, voodoo Indian. Voodoo Indian, voodoo Indian. We'll kill the cold chickens.
Welcome to Peace Freqs there, Cory.
Nice to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're glad to have you on.
We are a strange anarchist married couple up in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yes, that.
And I've been dealing with a midlife crisis amidst all this stuff that's going on up here. The whole coup thing. And a lot of it has been centered around money because it's kind of important. And we had J.W. Weatherman on a week or two ago, kind of helping me through what I'm considering a transitory period. All of my friends who are typically in the community, the ones certainly that are into Bitcoin, all have a tendency to be very single and not have families and things like that. And so their reaction to everything is just take all of your money and throw it into Bitcoin. And while, I personally do think that Bitcoin has the best chance of being future money given everything that was going on in the economy, I have the added responsibility of keeping two other people alive. So running a risky gamble, like throwing everything into Bitcoin is often, we'll just say, scary to say the least. Would you think that would be scary, wife?
I mean, there are definitely some concerns that you'd have as far as just having the liquid money that you'd need to function in life.
I don't see it like a scam coin necessarily where, you put a bunch of money and then, poof, it's gone, like in that South Park video. But the other things that I've also come across is that a lot of people that talk about it, they don't talk about it in like a practical sense. It's always just kind of, yep, you just got to keep throwing everything you got in there. So I wanted to talk to someone who spends a lot more time around this to kind of help, like say someone's new, like I understand it from a philosophical and even kind of like a technical level, but trying to decide how that fits into like an actual, like I have to go to do my day job and live life kind of practicality is a little perplexing to me. JW definitely helped me a lot in that department when we had him on, but I'm definitely looking for more voices on it to see if like, maybe he was just throwing his angle at it as opposed to, maybe someone else has a different angle. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, or tell my guests who you are and why we should listen to what you have to say in any regard.
Listen, man, I'm just here to help, and I'm not the government, so
Well, there you go.
So it actually means something.
It's a good start.
Listen, I'll answer the question directly before getting into my background and the product and everything. Listen, I happen to think it's important that people look at Bitcoin and understand it, and then I think what follows is essentially your understanding of Bitcoin and your knowledge of Bitcoin is, pretty much one-to-one correlated with your propensity to store some of your value, some of your accrued value in the Bitcoin protocol. So basically, the more you know, the more you buy.
Okay.
But it's not something that anyone who's involved in the industry needs to force on someone. You don't have to open up your coat and look at these shiny watches. Like, just run far away from anybody that's showing you like hyperbolic return charts or anything like that. Like, it's just
Yeah,
stupid.
no, that's silly.
Because basically, if you get into something and overextend yourself financially, there's studies on this. 96% of the time, if you don't understand an investment, you're going to buy high and sell low.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is why they say buy things you understand. This goes for stocks. This goes for, don't buy a house in some market that you don't really know well and truly understand, because you think that it's priced low enough for you to be able to like rent it out and net $300 a month or whatever. If you don't actually know that local market and you don't realize, hey, well, actually that block is on the decline because, the Stevens just moved out and they were really the linchpin because they were on the PTA. Like, if you don't understand a neighborhood to that level of detail, you have no business owning an apartment, and renting it out. And you have no business, if you don't have like a pretty good level of knowledge in Bitcoin, you don't have any business doing that either. Now, here's where I think it gets a little bit interesting. To encourage yourself to go down that path, as they say, go down the rabbit hole and start educating yourself and really seeking it out, it is really helpful to have a little bit of skin in the game.
Okay.
So we absolutely do encourage people to just get started with something small, only because it's a great investment, just like paying for a class, paying for a master class or going to community college or like whatever it is. If you think that you might be interested in something, the best thing you can do is invest a little bit of money in that, get yourself a little bit of skin in the game so that you'll go and get more education. Because if I, first start out and I put, $50 or $100 or start a savings plan where I'm putting $5 a week into Bitcoin or something like that, then I'm much more likely to pay attention to that news article or to read that book or listen to that podcast and start, educating myself. And then I'll get more comfortable with it over time. So that's kind of what we encourage. Like, get interested in Bitcoin, buy a little bit to encourage yourself to learn more. And, it sells itself.
Okay.
And to be clear, I have 0.0061 Bitcoin. That's what I own so far, which apparently is 553.61 according to Coinami.
Yeah, well, if I recall, I think that nets out to 670,000 satoshis, which makes you already more than double your allocation as a human on Earth. Because if you split the 21 million Bitcoins over 7.5 billion people, we each get 272,000 satoshis. A satoshi is the smallest unit of Bitcoin.
Okay.
Each Bitcoin is divisible into 100 million satoshis. You have 670,000 or whatever, which is, it's more than double what you should have. So good job.
Okay. Well, all right then.
Does that mean anything to you, Liz?
I have a very vague concept. Like I read the white paper.
Yeah.
Basically.
It basically means upper middle class, baby.
Okay. Well, that's good.
In Bitcoin terms.
Yeah. Like you said, so one of the big things that like I brought up with JW is, so we've been on a path of paying off a bunch of debt from when we had our kid, and I was like terrified to let her go without anything and wasted a bunch of money on credit cards. And now I'm like, we've been diligently working at it for years.
Right.
And to me, when I look at Bitcoin, at least where it would sit into a kind of like a portfolio right now, is I just look at it as a long-term investment. Like, I'm not expecting any like serious gains in the short term. Anything I put in there, I would imagine, is just what I can sock away, basically. But like, you talk to people and it's like, is it going to change over in 6 months and all of a sudden Bitcoin's going to be the new thing and I should have just spent all of my money in it, that way I could pay off all that debt when it goes sky high, kind of thing. And I tend to lean against that. That doesn't seem like a very conservative or wise position to be in, so I've been continuing to pay off the old debts. But it does kind of put me at odds when I talk to some of my buddies in the that community. So What are your thoughts on that? You expect in the next 6 months we're gonna see the flip, and all of a sudden Bitcoin's gonna be money?
No, I mean, my time frame for Bitcoin to be an important global money is probably somewhere between like 8 and 15 years,
Okay,
something like that. So we have these things called, it sounds like your listeners have listened to JW and probably some other people, so you guys are aware of the reward epics or the halvings. Every 4 years, Bitcoin's so far. We have 2 or 3 whole data points, so it doesn't mean anything statistically, but it does appear that for now Bitcoin kind of runs in these cycles where it has kind of like boom bust periods, and each boom is gets to a point that's quite a bit higher than the previous one. So, 2012 was the first halving, 2016. Next one's coming up here. It'll either be on May 11th or May 12th.
I was gonna say I knew that it was coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up. And, there's generally been sometime in the 12 to 18 months after a halving, there's been some kind of like price frenzy.
Okay.
Because there's a bit of a supply shock where the amount of Bitcoin that's being mined or being added to the supply every day is half of what it was before the halving.
Right.
And so with demand constant or even increasing, as often happens with the noise around the halving, there's just kind of this cycle that's kind of built into the supply function of the asset that causes these wild speculative bubbles every 4 years. So, we don't know if it'll happen, but it's certainly, I think it probably will. I don't think that we're done with these because there's just not enough people globally that actually know and understand Bitcoin and the supply schedule and all these things. And the meme is still so strong around the halving that it'll probably just be a self-fulfilling prophecy, at least this cycle, probably at least one more after this as well.
Interesting. I'd not actually heard so much of like the kind of the breakdown of what the halving actually does market wise. So that's kind of interesting. I know what it does in the overall, but like I've never paid much attention to how people react to it, I guess. Yeah,
but also just be aware, like the last 2 times there was a price drop of like 40 to 50% after the halving.
Yeah.
So even if we see some kind of run up, where are we now? Probably just under 9K or something. Like let's say there's a run up sometime in May this month, up to 15 or something like that. If it follows the last couple cycles, you'll also see a drop back down into the 4 digits not long after that. And it hasn't really gotten going until the following year in the previous cycles. So, we're just kind of like, it's a good time to learn about Bitcoin. It's a good time to start accumulating or start stacking, as we Bitcoiners say, start stacking those sats.
Yeah.
And, you think about what the, where Bitcoin is in a portfolio of assets, whether you have like, maybe a home or even negative assets like paying down credit card debts or whatever. Owning some Bitcoin is really just like having a call option.
Okay.
On Bitcoin becoming an important global money.
Yeah.
Because you can own a piece of it. And, whatever you own, yes, it could go to zero, but it also has asymmetric upside return potential. It could go up significantly from here. So that's that sort of call option function where, yes, you have like this limited downside, but this high potential upside.
Yeah.
Now with call options, you never want to put all of your money into a call option because it could expire and become worth nothing.
Yeah.
But you want to buy call options with a little bit of your money because you see that it has the potential for a lot of upside.
Never said it was lying and deceiving. You're leaving, hit me awful hard.
Hey, it means the world to Liz and I that you spend the time listening to us. And I'd hate to lose you to another podcast, but I simply have to tell you about my buddy Sean's podcast, The Porcupine Perspective. If you like your liberty raw and unfiltered with just a hint of deep melancholic brooding, then The Porcupine Perspective is the podcast for you. They ponder big themes and real questions. This is hands down one of my favorite podcasts. So go subscribe to The Porcupine Perspective so it can be your second favorite. I mean, if nothing else, one of the things that I feel is important is that, so if this does what we expect it to do and become money, I don't know that everyone wants to be brand new to the world currency when it happens. Like, I would rather be kind of practiced in its use and kind of have some time spent understanding it so that I'm, not a complete idiot or not a complete noob when that moment happens.
Yeah. I mean, by the time that Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and, Jenny down the street have to denominate their wealth in Bitcoin or Satoshis, if that ever comes to pass, it'll all be kind of abstracted away anyway. So
Okay.
only, the same techie scientist types that we're dealing with now are the ones that are going to be dealing with the base layer and private keys and all these things. Everything
Okay.
else will just be abstracted away for normies, including people like me. Like, it's amazing what I've forced myself to learn about Bitcoin as a technology and the protocol, given that that's not really my training or, naturally my interest, but I have to know it to be able to be in this business.
Well, and then that's my I guess my next question is, so where do you come? How did you find yourself in this whole world where I was kind of banking on like a global shift, so to speak?
Yeah, well, you got to start in the early days, right? So parents met on Haight-Ashbury after
Oh, good
growing
Lord.
up in Middle America and,
Nice.
going to KU and Southern Illinois University, respectively, dad and mom. And so I was born out in the Bay Area and grew up mostly kind of like on and off of a commune until I was about 8. So that was kind of like fun immigrating to the United States when I was 8.5, getting off the commune and moving up to Seattle. And so I grew up in Seattle, 5th through 12th grade public schools, and basically pretty normal, I guess, but with that interesting lens of almost being in a third culture that you could never go back to, because you could never go back to this place that you grew up in.
Yeah.
And it also made me sort of like, Jane Goodall, the local sitch all the time, and kind of like looking at everybody with sort of this outsider's eyes. I often make a joke that I'm like a wasp in sheep's clothing, because I just look like this like blonde, blue-eyed, all the white people in New York, Chicago, LA are like super comfortable being themselves around me, but like I didn't grow up like them, which is kind of interesting.
Y'all are weird.
Yeah, so that's always been kind of fun. Just been a study of people and social norms and behavior and things like that.
Rivers from Weezer always fascinated me. That like part of his upbringing was he was raised on a commune by his mother. His brother's name is Leaves.
Yeah.
And he's become a big rock star over the past couple of decades, but it's like that dude grew up on a commune. It seems odd.
There's a lot of them. A lot of them ended up in the arts. Like most of my contemporaries, and my brother is 7 years older than me. They're all like, musicians, artists, a lot of them. I'm the weirdo that ended up in business. The lead singer of Live was in our particular commune. If you remember that band from the 90s, I'm blanking on his name, but Lightning Crashes and all that.
Not my favorite by them, but they have some good songs back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty good. And yes, I was aware of Rivers Cuomo. And yes, most of my childhood friends had nature names of various kinds.
Okay, right on.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, a lot of musical and nature names. But so I went off to school. I was a broadcast journalism major at University of Missouri for undergrad, and went to work for Microsoft after school, because I was like a late 90s guy, so it was internet was kind of taking off, and
the belly of the beast right there.
Yeah, I tried to work at kind of the intersection of journalism and internet technology, and I was really interested in like new media and interactive television and all these kinds of things, and went to work for them out in New York. And it was like a really early crappy interactive television product that we tried to put out and got no traction. And I worked in advertising for a year after that at Ogilvy Interactive. Worked on like Jaguar and American Express and
Wow.
a bunch of other clients, all interactive, like online. This is super early online crap where you could charge like $1 million for a banner campaign and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and this was like a couple years before Ogilvy got sued by the federal government for overcharging the ONDCP for their campaigns. Not something I worked on, but I did know the team.
Oh, Lord.
And I don't know. It turns out that with my, hippie upbringing and my parents, and everyone around me always like sort of shunning money and, not wanting to put any focus on possessions and money and things, for whatever reason, I came out super ambitious and like actually wanting to know a lot about money, this thing that was just kind of like hidden from me. And so I think a lot of my career has been trying to understand like where money comes from and how people get it, and being dissatisfied with the answers that I find. So I was there for the dot-com boom, and I was working in technology, and I saw all the, free money sloshing around from the VCs and, all the ad tech stuff and the media stuff and iVillage parties and all that stuff in New York. And I was in my early 20s, and all the happy hours were free like 6 days a week. And, it just it didn't seem real, and it came crashing down, rightfully so.
Because it wasn't real.
Yeah, it wasn't real. And so I was like, okay, so that was BS. So then what do I do? Okay, let me see if I can like go to business school and see see what's up with like the real economy, since that internet economy clearly was fake, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to go back to business school. I went to the University of Chicago, which is like as real as it gets.
Yep.
It's, super hardcore. You're in the books, it's not just a networking party for 2 years like you study. And I did, and got introduced to a lot of good economics and finance, and got my MBA and all that. And turns out the most valuable thing I did by far was the 3 months in Barcelona where I didn't really go to class. but that's okay. It just taught me how to live life and how to function basically as a human. Anyway,
That's cool.
Barcelona sounds like the place to do that, of course.
it was good. Yeah, it was like, okay, so the TLDR on that was I spent like the next 10 years trying to figure out how to duplicate that life
Oh,
without
wow.
being on student loans. Because, when you're in school and you're on loans,
Yep.
of course, your life is great and you can do whatever you want. So I've been trying to figure out how to have as close to that life as possible while also being able to afford it. Anyway, but so back to this, like, this old economy thing. So I was like, okay, what's like the most old economy, solid ground? Like, I don't want the floor ripped out from under me again. So I'm going to like get a business degree and I'm going to go work for McKinsey and Company, the big consulting firm. And
I just see this like doing the exact opposite of what you expect it to do. But
so I did it. I went to McKinsey and I worked in private equity and like was doing all this like, old line stuff with these big companies and investments and all this stuff. And then that fell apart. The 2008 crisis was like literally most of these leveraged loans and private equity just stopped on a dime basically in early 2008. And
you're just asking yourself, okay, is any of this real anywhere?
right. Yeah. So like, what is it? And, it's super interesting that, the white paper came out on Halloween of 2008 in the midst of all that. And the network started running on January 3rd of 2009. I happened to meet my wife that fall of 2009 at our Halloween party in Chicago. And I was still working in management consulting at the time. She didn't like me traveling all the time as we started to date and start to get kind of serious. So I was like, okay, so the internet thing, well, that was basically fake. And the solid old world economy was basically fake. So what can you do? The only thing I could see that seemed to make sense was to be in a much smaller company where you had a lot more control over your outcome and it wasn't totally at the whims of markets. So like I just got this idea. I had a lot of friends from startups that had done really well, but had kind of stuck it out in New York, mostly starting in the .com, and they just kind of stayed with it and ended up, selling companies and doing well in the last part of the aughts. And so I figured I could, get involved in early stage tech and be in small companies. And, you only have to win once. You can try 10 companies and you only have to win once and you're doing pretty well. So that's kind of was the plan. Couldn't figure out how to get there from here. So I went to Google for 2 years, basically as like internet MBA, to work at Google and just kind of like learn everything online over again and actually pay attention this time.
So he's worked with both of the devils, Liz.
This is back when they were still actually said, don't be evil. Like they can't say that with a straight face anymore. But at the time, you could actually get away with that at a party and it would kind of still be true.
Yeah.
So it was 2011 and 2013.
I'm personally leery of anyone who's had checks signed by Bill Gates. So
yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I have a different perspective there, being from Seattle and having kind of grown up with people, knowing the family and, being aware of him and his efforts, especially post Microsoft to really try to do good things, but that's okay.
I don't think he's evil. I'm not going down that path. I just think sometimes true believers with too much money are not good either.
Yeah. I mean, true believers, whether they have money or not, it can be problematic.
That's true as well.
There's a reason they choose that term for Nazi movies. But
yeah. Well, there you go.
Look, I didn't tie it into Nazis. I wasn't going there, man. Whatever. Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's all good. No, I'm literally commenting on the Hollywood movie. That's all.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, there's a movie called True Believer. So I got into startups. I moved out to California again, came out to the LA area in Santa Monica and in early 2013, left Google by that summer to work in startups. Been doing like angel investing and advising and operating early stage. I like companies that have like, somewhere between like 2 and 20 people, something like that. And just kind of helping them raise money, helping them with strategy, personnel. And then when I see an opportunity that I get really interested in, I might jump in and, operate. So I had joined a founding team as a co-founder of an ad tech company for a couple of years. Otherwise, I've invested in, probably 25 companies in the last 7 years, and I've been an advisor to probably 25 or 30 companies over that time, usually with a lens of helping with the CEO in particular directly with strategy and fundraising.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're a guy who knows monies. That's what it sounds like. And it seems like you've seen.
I wasn't ready for Bitcoin though. Like that really hit me upside the head and just blew my mind.
So how does that happen? Like how does it do that? Like
fits and starts, like a lot of people, you have your missed opportunities, So somebody gave me some Bitcoin at a tech conference in January of 2014. And I remember because I downloaded a blockchain wallet and they sent it to me, and I had, this Bitcoin sitting there on that wallet, and I proceeded to not read the white paper, not go down the rabbit hole, and lose the private key.
Oh,
So that's gone.
jeez.
So that sucks.
There's a lot of money that's like sitting in dumpsters.
It's in the
Yeah.
ether, man. Yeah, I mean that's completely unrecoverable. Yeah, I mean there's no hardware wallet there. There's no dumpster. It's just gone. And then in like late, I know it came from a Christmas party that I went to in 2015. So it was late 2015. An associate of mine had some stock that he'd invested in some early Bitcoin companies or Bitcoin related companies, and was trying to sell off a bunch of startup shares basically. And so I helped him put together a slide deck that included me like researching these two companies. One was Balaji's company, 21E6, and the other one I won't talk about, and put together slides on them. So I'm like reading about Bitcoin and having to describe it, and it still didn't click. Like it didn't take. I think probably because I'm just like such a social animal.
Yeah.
And all of my cues basically come from like what people around me are talking about, and kind of the signals that I'm getting from my network and things that I'm interested in, things that I'm reading. It wasn't until all the price noise of the price run up in spring of 2017 that it caught my attention. And we're coming up on my anniversary. I think it was May 23rd of 2017. I had a meeting with a VC that I often talk to about deals that I was working on. And he had gone out to a conference in New York and, basically took the call from the floor of this conference, and all the noise was there. And he told me he had quit his job a few days before. And I thought he had basically the best job in venture capital.
Oh, wow.
And had joined, one of these projects to work on a new money or some crap. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to check this out, this whole thing. And, coming at it from the startup and VC side, that's really confusing because that world, sees technology much more than money, and they have kind of the wrong lens. I had the wrong lens with which to view Bitcoin. That whole crew, the Stanford, Silicon Valley crew, basically looks at this and says, oh, well, that's cool. That's probably MySpace. Like somebody's going to come along and invent Facebook.
Which is why we got all of the shit coins that came up and went.
Yeah. So my signal was wrong because they have the wrong mental framework to see these things. So people whose blogs that I read, like, Fred Wilson or, always, read anything that Andreessen Horowitz puts out, and like, they're still totally dead wrong on this thing because it's like 15% technology and 85% money. It's not the reverse. And you can't duplicate the network effect and the immaculate conception of Bitcoin with any of these other things. The Schelling point, as they say, has already been with Bitcoin for 6 or 7 years now. Bitcoin won a long time ago. It's just a matter of whether you actually recognize that and stop wasting time on the other ones.
How's it going? This is Nikki P, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by our neck of the woods. I sure hope you enjoy listening to Peace Freqs as much as we enjoy making it. Now, as much fun as it is right now, I know it can be a lot more fun, and the way to make it more fun is to grow that community. Unfortunately for us, growing anything organically on the internet is a thing of the past, and as much as I'd like to dump Irma's college fund into growing the show, that would make me a bad parent. So if you want to help create a bigger, more badass community, stop by upgradetheshow.com. We have monthly and yearly fiat options and one-time and yearly crypto options. But don't go thinking an upgraded community is all you're going to get. All patrons of the show get access to the Freedom Choir, chock full of bonus shows, and our Zoom link to watch our interviews live. So head over to upgradetheshow.com and help us upgrade this freaky little community. And that's one of the things that I always get confused about personally, is that I understand Bitcoin as a money, but they talk as though there is some value technologically to, like, say, the other coins. I'm not sure if it's, when you get into like smart contracts and things like that, if there's value in those other systems and the way they exist, like, because they do have different security protocols and things like that that might be useful in a different format. So I have difficulty writing them up, but I other than Bitcoin as like a money, I'm very, very thin in my understanding of, I get why they suck and Bitcoin works, but when you change the application, I see that there could be potential there, and maybe that's just me being naive on it.
I mean, it doesn't really matter because, like, if you're interested in it and you decide that you want to hold one of those assets, you're going to have to educate yourself so much to get to that point.
Yeah.
To actually feel comfortable, buying one of these penny coins, altcoins, S coins, whatever you want to call them. So that's a couple years away for anybody, or they're making a bad investment decision.
Or maybe I'm just misconstruing, because I know that they talk a lot about the tokenization of different assets and things like that.
That doesn't really mean anything. It just means digital records.
Okay.
It just means an entry in a database.
Okay.
I mean, that's literally all it means. It just means fractional shares.
Right.
Okay.
When somebody says tokenization of real estate, it just means like, hey, I'm going to take the ownership of that building and dial it down to like 100 million of those, let's say, instead of just one, and let you like trade that freely.
Interesting.
There's nothing interesting on the order of like creating the new language by which all humans will communicate the most important thing possible, which is price and value. Basically you could take the basket of every other altcoin or digital asset or whatever out there, the digitally native ones, not one that is like some kind of record of a physical or real world asset or cash flow or revenue stream or whatever, but like the crypto assets. My view on it is really just an economic calculation. If you're going to spend time learning about something, owning something, working on something, starting a company related to something, my view is that all the potential upside for all the rest put together is somewhere between 100th and 1,000th of Bitcoin's upside.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't really make any sense for me to spend time on them.
Does it seem like they're trying to solve a problem that Bitcoin already solves, so they're unnecessary?
Yes. The problem that they're trying to solve is that they did not own Bitcoin early enough to be rich already. That's the problem they're trying to solve. That's the only problem they're trying to solve. Literally the only problem. It's just Bitcoin affinity marketing and, basically just trying to run a scam.
Interesting.
Okay.
So there's two types of scams going on outside of Bitcoin. One is like outright scams, and the other one is where they're scamming themselves too.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, they're trying to take your Bitcoin.
Right.
And probably your money.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because what I'm saying is they're trying to take your money that could otherwise be Bitcoin.
Yeah. Right on. Now, I'm curious if you would know any decent resources as far as the one thing, like even once you do buy in and you're really interested in this and you do decide to start making moves. Out of everything I've seen, you do have the most interesting product because it is a very set and forget kind of, I know that I can allocate this amount of money towards whatever is going to happen here.
Yeah.
And you guys have crazy prices for that, frankly. Like, as a guy who's, like I said, I work on Bitcoin ATMs, so I've seen some absolutely bonkers fees get charged for transactions. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what Swan is?
Yeah.
And like what that offers people? Because like I said, as a guy who has a family who doesn't want to have to necessarily be always thinking about this, but wants to be making moves in that direction, it seems like one of the best options available.
Yeah, I mean, so swanbitcoin.com, which launched to the public on March 30th. So we're about a month in right now.
Oh, wow.
This is something that I started working on last April. So it's been about a year in the making to get out the door. And basically the product is super simple. It's a set it and forget it Bitcoin savings plan that lets you, essentially stack Bitcoin the same way that you would, save for retirement or, accrue value in a mortgage, which are the other two big buckets of savings that I personally think people should have. And that's automatically. It just is an automatic pull from your bank account, an automatic purchase of the Bitcoin, and then either free custody with us until you want to withdraw, or automatic withdrawal to your self-custody if that's what you choose, which we recommend. So as soon as you're educated enough to be able to take possession of your Bitcoin, then you just take possession of it. But until then, it's free to leave it with us if you want to.
And that's when you start getting into like hardware wallets and stuff like that.
Hot wallets, cold wallets, multi-sig setups, collaborative custody with companies like Unchained Capital, things like that.
Is there like a base level hardware that you recommend people get, or do you know who would be a person to talk to about it? Is like, so like, say I want to start making serious moves in like maintaining Bitcoin and being as safe as you can in that market?
Yeah, I mean the three most popular hardware wallets are Ledger, Trezor, and cold card.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the market's about evenly split between the three. I literally just saw a poll yesterday where they polled a few thousand people, and it was like 26%, 25%, 24%, and other. So they're clearly the three leading.
Okay. And is there like, how about this? Liz? Why don't you? When I say hardware wallet, what does that mean to you?
To me, it means a piece of hardware where you transfer that code that identifies your Bitcoin.
And that's theoretically that's for like long-term storage of Bitcoin, right? Or am I getting too confused on that? Would there be something like hardware-wise that you would use for like if I actually wanted to use Bitcoin in the interim?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically you use a hardware wallet, which is just a little bit of software on something, usually somewhat like a USB key, and it just lets you sign transactions and essentially like store your private keys so that you can access your, essentially your addresses, your wallet on the Bitcoin blockchain. So it's a way to view your balances. It's a way to sign transactions. It's a way to accept payments. Just kind of like use Bitcoin with a hardware wallet. You can do the same thing with a hot wallet, which is just an online internet wallet where you have, your private key or your login or your password or whatever. And a lot of the apps that you'll find where you just kind of like have a Bitcoin wallet on your phone are just using a hot wallet. Obviously, it's less secure, but easier to use.
Yeah.
So there's always kind of like there's like an ease of use versus security trade-off. Remember the story of, the Winklevoss twins when they got into Bitcoin in 2011, 2012, they went through this ridiculous, process of randomizing the selection of their private keys and then splitting them up on pieces of paper and then splitting those pieces of paper into like different sets and then going to 12 regional banks safety deposit boxes around the country and like putting those pieces of paper in the safety deposit boxes.
I could dig random holes in backyards in my neighborhood. It'd probably be just as secure.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, the private key archaeology is going to be this whole thing in the 22nd century.
Oh my God.
So I guess to me it sounds like, so like, I've got like the app on my phone that would kind of be like if I wanted to have like a wallet, like have like an actual wallet on me, like that'd be like the wallet I take out of my, hey, I've got $50 here to spend. Whereas like the hardware wallets would be something like, say, that's what you do instead of taking it to the bank. Now you just deposit in the hardware wallet. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like the likelihood of anyone in a few years actually using proper Bitcoin rather than just like a ledger on some, like an internal ledger, just like a database on somebody else's. Most people are probably just going to be using like Bitcoin credits. It's going to be denominated in Bitcoin, but you're going to trust, Square or Visa or whoever enough that, they probably have the Bitcoin and somebody's checking their statements or whatever. And so, you're kind of like spending Bitcoin and transferring it around. But like for the most part, a lot of it's just going to be kind of, custodied Bitcoin with some big company that's kind of sending it around. Now, what's cool and what's
Am I right to be terrified in hearing Visa anywhere near Bitcoin?
No,
because that scares the shit out of me just because of how sometimes those companies tend to operate. I know not particularly them. I believe it was MasterCard has like shut people off from the ability to use things.
Well, see, this is what's great about Bitcoin. So what's great about it is with things like the Lightning Network and, everything that's being built on a layer above Bitcoin is you will be able to actually transact very easily in those little applications that are coming out now. And there's been a big rush of them in 2019 to 2020, letting people who are savvy enough. And again, the bar for that is going to get lower and lower as over time, as the technology just gets kind of abstracted away and creating really beautiful, user interfaces and making it really simple for normies to use, real layer 2 technologies that are decentralized, that are not controlled by a company. That will very much be available to a wider and wider swath of people as well. And I think already, for instance, Bitcoin is already keeping certain Bitcoin's existence, and the fact that people can store their value in Bitcoin rather than the local currency is already starting to keep certain regimes in check around the world. There's sort of evidence that, for instance, Nigeria is printing less money because so much of the local economy has access to Bitcoin through
I've heard that one,
through gift cards and Amazon gift cards. And you saw Matt Alberg's piece a few months back on that. I think similarly, I think the existence of Lightning and really useful and easy to use payment technology that is decentralized is going to keep in check so many of the abuses that you would otherwise see, because they will be forced to compete against Bitcoin and open source.
Okay, and that's what I was gonna say. It's like, yeah, Visa might still be doing the work, but you also have options.
They might be still doing all these things, but they're going to have to be better actors, or people are going to exit.
Yeah.
They're going to exit to Bitcoin because if you're bad as a company, and it's not that hard anymore for somebody to switch to Bitcoin native everything, then they'll just switch. So I think that's pretty cool.
Like, it might be more of a pain in the ass, but you can always go back to like first level. You don't have to use the second layer. So if you wanted to, yeah, it might be more of a pain in the ass, but there's always a way around them that you could find a way to utilize, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you got deplatformed and it was that worth it to you, then you could just spend a weekend brushing up on Bitcoin and just use Bitcoin as it's currently designed.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You can always exit now. Bitcoin is freedom. Bitcoin is freedom money.
Yeah.
It's a get quick. What do they say? It's a get free quick technology.
Get that quick, okay.
Not a get rich quick.
That sounds so good right now.
Right?
That sounds like a more fun version of the garden in the backyard.
Kind of, yeah.
So you did mention fees, and I did want to come back to this real quick because we talked about this before you hit record. Traditionally the sellers of Bitcoin, as you've noted with some of the ATM companies and certainly with the exchanges like the Coinbases and the Krakens and the Geminis, have deliberately made it very expensive for retail investors to set up essentially like an automatic Bitcoin savings account. So what we're talking about at the lowest levels, like say $5, $20, whatever, those fees will range somewhere between like 5 and 10% on a Coinbase, for instance. With Swan, if you set up say $50 a week, so $200 a month or more, that fee for us is like 0.99%. Yeah, but then also like it's not that bad. Like even if you only want to do $5 a month, that's like 2.49% for us. So generally we try to be like 60 to 75% lower tthan Coinbase.
Well, and like I was telling you, for people who are listening, I work on Bitcoin ATM, so occasionally I'll have to test a machine, and I'll just take money, put it in there, and why not throw it in my own wallet if I'm going to have to test the machine anyways? But like literally, if I go to the machine, I have a $20 minimum, and it has to be a $20 bill. I can't even put 2 tens in. This is annoying. But and then it's going to charge me $4 right off the top of the 20 I put in, plus a percentage of what it is. I can't remember exactly what the percentage is, but regardless, so $4 right off the top. I'm just losing.
Mm-hmm.
And $20, like I think by the time it gets in there, like I literally a quarter of my money is gone just to get it into Bitcoin. So when you set me, like I'm looking at 3%, like holy crap, like that's way more doable. Like I'm thinking I'm gonna have to give away a quarter of my money just to get it into Bitcoin, and like I'm losing all that. I'm like, well, I can't be doing that. Like I'm gonna be throwing money down the drain. So it was definitely kind of like a come to Jesus moment in that regard for me. Like, wow, this might actually be doable. Like I could totally set something up like that. 3% I can handle. We're going to lose that in inflation this year easily. So.
Don't try to hide the sin. The cancer blossoms within. Metastasis, another way. Repeat it again and again. This time will be worse. Choking on your ashes. Your words mean nothing to me.
Do you like your libertarian podcast host leather-clad on a motorcycle running from Nazis in black and white? I'm sure my friend Eric in no way resembles that at all, but his Rebel with a Cause podcast is guaranteed to bring you that same rebellious spirit, bringing in guests from all over the political wheel, bringing with it his own personal blend of irreverence and, dare I say it, down-home charm. So head on over to the Rebel with a Cause podcast and begin your own rebellion against bad podcasts. Where can I send people to get them kind of interested? Because, like I said, I for me, a lot of what I'm trying to gear the show for is like handling my midlife crisis with all the other people that are in my kind of position, handling their own midlife crises of dealing with the coup and trying to figure out how life is going to move forward and prepare for whatever is coming next.
Do I hear you saying the Couve?
Yes.
The Couve. I hadn't heard that one. Out west, they call it the Rona.
Oh, okay, yeah. Just trying not to get dinged by the algorithms
Yeah. Okay.
audibly.
YouTube will kick you off if you say it. So
Unbelievable. Yeah, I think that happened to us. We had a title of, because we're talking about like macroeconomics and the effects of the whole thing, and et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, our channel got taken down.
well, I know that they've gone through and been cleaning house on anything cryptocurrency related in the past couple months. I've seen a lot of that been going on. So it could have been for that too.
No, it wasn't. It was specifically the posting of a particular video that had the Couve, as you say, in the title of the video.
Okay.
Uh-huh. What is the address or the channel? What would people want to search if they want to find your?
Oh, I'm not going to give it out because it's down.
So the whole channel's down.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
wow. Okay.
yeah. So where you want to hang with us anyway. We never spend any time on YouTube. It's all Twitter pretty much. So Swan Bitcoin is the handle. As Swan Bitcoin on Twitter, and then swanbitcoin.com. And then we have a pretty robust education section on the website with a lot of great pieces by awesome Bitcoiners. Our team is basically a team of Bitcoin educators. So Jan Pritzker is our co-founder and CTO, and he wrote a book, Inventing Bitcoin, which just came out on Audible last week, which is pretty cool. It's kind of like a well-loved book for passing out to newcomers.
Okay.
And then Brady Swenson runs education for us. He's the podcast host of Citizen Bitcoin, which has been up for the last couple of years, kind of just having a lot of the best Bitcoiners talking about Bitcoin, from Andreas Antonopoulos to JW and everybody else. And then we just added this week a guy named Andy Edstrom, who wrote the book Why Buy Bitcoin, and also runs a wealth management practice out here in Southern California. And is a former Goldman guy. He's just gone way down the rabbit hole and super's into Bitcoin. So he's running institutional for us and helping us figure out Bitcoin IRAs and using financial advisors and RIAs, registered investment advisors, to help their clients buy Bitcoin on those platforms. So yeah, it's a pretty good crew. Guy Swan, who runs the Cryptoconomy podcast, which is now turning into Bitcoin Audible. He runs kind of like our media, PR, outreach efforts as well.
Bitcoin Audible?
Yeah, so he reads the best Bitcoin pieces, and he's been doing it for a couple of years. So I think he's about to hit episode 400.
Okay,
I'm so excited because I can listen to these now. I like that. That's basically the education is very appealing because I love economics. So
yeah. So the other secret I have is when Guy Swan hasn't, his last name's Swan with 2 N's, which is hilarious. But when he hasn't read a piece, I just save it to Pocket, the Pocket app. And the Pocket text to speech reader is unbelievably good.
Okay.
So I just constantly save articles all the time to Pocket because I can never actually sit down and read anything either. I just have AirPods and like
my whole day is driving, so I can listen for 8 hours a day to stuff.
Yeah. So Pocket is your best friend. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yep. Pocket app or Get Pocket app or something like that. It's really good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are there any remaining questions you had, Liz, since we have someone who actually knows what the hell they're talking about and you don't have to filter it through me for a change?
I mean, it's just a ridiculously interesting story because you've been in the market for so many of the sort of seminal moments of.
Yeah. Well, I left something out, which is kind of funny. I realized before I went to business school, I actually worked at Morgan Stanley for a year.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
So I was planning to work there for like 2 or 3 years and like really get into finance and understand it before going to business school. But I happened to work on the 64th floor of Tower 2, downtown New York.
Ooh.
Okay.
And my building fell down in September of 2001. And so a couple months later, I decided to apply immediately and try to go to business school as fast as possible.
Look, so don't take this the wrong way, but you've been a lot of places and then like mysteriously, like your building falls down and you just weren't there that day. And, we're here in this like subversive realm that we are. Are you sure you're not a Fed? You have to tell me if you are, right?
Yeah, I don't think they go. They recruit from like St. Gradelsax and Eton and stuff like that. They're not looking for like the Haight-Ashbury kids.
How'd you get tipped off?
My understanding, I've actually wondered okay, so how do you get the tap? Like, how do you even get the offer? Like, how come Like, I mean, I feel like I look the part and I've worked at some of these places. Like,
Right,
when's
like
the
it could have
tap
happened
coming?
by now.
But like, I think you actually do kind of have to like go to those prep schools, and you have to go to Trinity or Georgetown or Harvard or something like
Yeah.
that. And,
Okay.
you know, then they tap you, and hopefully you had like a diplomat father, so you have some cover for why you would have friends around the world. Like, hopefully you speak multiple languages, so it's not weird that you suddenly picked up Arabic or Thai or whatever. Like, you kind of have to you have to look like a spy already to be a candidate, because otherwise you don't have good cover.
That makes sense.
So like my wife went to the International School of Jeddah growing up, so probably like half her classmates are spies now.
Okay.
Oh, so your wife is the spy.
My
I
wife
get
is the
it.
spy. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Mrs. Swan is like a super spy.
There you go.
Yeah.
But Rothbard always said 25% of the people you know when you're in these areas, they're feds. So you got to be careful. So I try not to
Yeah,
focus too much on that
absolutely.
side of things.
I'm pretty sure that whatever you've divulged in this conversation by virtue of it being, you know, broadcast on YouTube is,
Right.
you know, fair game. I don't know if it matters my other job.
Oh, I've said way more ridiculous stuff. Like I said, when I made it a point to tell my boss I was going to be talking to you, because he part of the reason I work for a Bitcoin ATM company is because I work for a traditional ATM company,
Mhm.
and I've been very, very clear that, like, you know, I'm watching what's going on with all of these meetings in Washington, and they're talking about money, and it starts becoming very, very concerning when you deal with paper money as your job, that they're starting talking digital currency. And we all know that getting rid of paper money for a variety of reasons is something that they want to do anyways. So I know that it's on his mind, you know, how that's going to work and what's going to be available when the time comes. So I'm pretty positive that's why they got into Bitcoin ATMs in the first place. Is He's just setting up what the next thing is going to be when that business eventually goes away.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's why I'm always so interested in like the technology side of it, because, you know, that's how we're going to be onboarding people when it happens.
Well, I'll give you the perfect forecast for how this will play out. It's, gosh, we're the government. We really want to do the right things. We're elected by you guys and we work for you. Remember back in 2020, just like how hard it was to get the people their money, and like the corporations got their money first, and just how unfair that was.
I've already heard that speech. It's already there.
It was just so hard, right? Yeah. So like the next time something like that happens, we really need to be able to get the money like right into the hands of the people. So we're going to have to just go ahead and get rid of this here cash and give you your digital account with your ID tied to it. And that way we can helicopter that money right to you
Yeah.
next time you need it. And by the way, so that you guys all go along with this and like support us as we vote for taking away all your privacy and freedom, we're going to go ahead and like start this off with like $500 a month for all of you right off the bat. It's going to be just like Rome. It's going to be dope. It totally ended well.
And while you're being facetious about this, it's the ridiculous part is that was already presented. That was the first round of the stimulus that they were working on.
100% will happen like that.
That was exactly what they were saying in Congress when they tried to pass that one. The digital currency was taken out of that bill, but the fact that it made it there means that's happening. Like it might be 5 years from now, it might be 6 months from now, I don't know, but that's going to be a thing that happens. All right, well, I really do appreciate you coming on here. I continue to feel good in my decisions and how I've handled this so far, the transition to Bitcoin for us. And, conservative seems to be the thing regardless.
Yeah.
Basically, just use your head. Don't throw all of your money into any one thing right now.
And get educated, which
Yes.
I think is always a good choice.
I think that's right.
I've been putting off having actual Bitcoin guests on for a while. It's just been needed. Nothing else, Liz?
I mean, I think we've taken enough of Cory's time. We really appreciate you coming
I'm gonna go put the 2-year-old
on.
to bed now.
Right?
For real.
Yeah,
I have to go put her to bed.
Seems like a great idea. And we'll go study, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you so much.
That sounds good. Awesome. Well, I commend you guys on running like a really good, interesting format show, and you guys are very sweet and smart, and this was really fun. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
You very much, Cory. You have yourself a good one, boss.
All right, you too.
Why don't you just walk away? There's a reason why I let you go and I took back my name. When you quit talking to me on the phone, I'd listen to your old voicemail. And if they knew I was following you, they'd have put my ass in jail. But now I see right through your acting, girl, you can go to hell. It wasn't anything that I'd done that caused our
All right, babe. So that was it. What are you thinking? What were your takeaways on this one?
I'm really excited that there are tools like this out there, because we don't all have a couple $1,000s to just like go buy. Well, it'd be more than a couple $1,000s. It's like $10,000 now. To just, go out and like start buying big chunks of Bitcoin. So stuff like this that makes it easy for like the average Joe or someone who can only set aside like $10 here and there. Like, that's huge. I mean, I think.
Well, according to what he said, where we had $50.
Yeah.
Now to take that amount now, and like we're actually like quadruple upper middle class now. Like we're getting into like wealthy territory.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna try to like wrap my mind around any of that. I just know that it's there and it's happening, and it's putting things in a positive direction. And like I said, anything that can.
In a world where Bitcoin is money, we are wealthy.
Yeah, like people who are of average wealth, or even kind of trying to get their wealth building together. Like, if you can put you in a position where you're in a better position in the future, I think that's good. So stuff that's creating that kind of equality, I'm okay with.
You said equality in there. Like, what are you you're trying to get racial on all this, aren't you?
Am I?
What is it with you and trying to get racial today?
Well, I feel like it's
like I don't think you're equal or something.
No. Me and you, we're on the same team. So our family making progress is our family making progress.
I don't know. Maybe you're starting smaller teams. Maybe there's a team that's just you and Irma.
No.
The fuck daddy team.
No, there's only the one team. No, I'm very happy that we're all together here.
I wish I had more libertarian friends.
More libertarian friends would be really cool. It's nice to have people that you can talk to who are able to have conversation, because I know there's a lot of emotion going around right now, and that it is difficult to talk through that.
What we're telling you is, if you listened this long, go find Jake Lindsay and start booking your room for Childeberg Town, or I like Childevilles, which is the one I heard from the guys.
Childeville.
Yeah, over at Architecture.
That's not bad. I can dig that.
I like it better than some of the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get this thing, make it a reality. And if we all force him to like have to bite the bullet and start doing shit about it, then it'll happen quicker.
Maybe. That'd be cool.
I want these backyards.
What are you talking about?
The forested backyards, Liz. I have a vision for this town in my head too.
Oh, okay.
The permaculture forest backyards. That's what I want.
Okay. Yeah. See, I hadn't gotten that far with it.
Yeah, no, honey. I'm
just thinking about all of us buying Bitcoin, and you're.
Yeah, no, I'm way down past the point where we've used all of our Bitcoin wealth.
I see. Okay.
To fund, essentially,
to build the world that we want to live in.
Yeah, mini rainforests and stuff, and
yeah, I'm okay with it. I need to go cut the mini rainforest in the backyard is what I need to do.
I don't know how you're going to cut it. Like, how do you get around all of the mini mountains in said rainforest?
I don't know. I'm going to have to figure something out.
All right, folks. Well, if you like what you heard, go check out peacefreaks.com. Spell it whichever of the two ways you like. Doesn't matter. They both take you the same place. You got show notes and the Freedom Choir if you want to send us some shillings on there, and just a whole lot of general fun stuff. I've been working on the website. Going to be working on it more in the future.
Yep.
So,
if you got any questions, comments, conversation, you can find us on Facebook or on the Twitter. Okay, the Twitter's mostly Nick, but we are there.
Yeah, and if you want to start an intentional community, let's talk.
Yes, totally want to talk about that. But yeah, we really appreciate you listening, and we hope that you're staying safe and doing all right out there. So thanks for hanging with us.
Take it easy.
Make it magical.
This podcast is a proud creation of the Mad Audio Lab. For more information, check out madaudiolab.com. Peace Freqs is part of the Liberty Hippie Podcast Network. If you like what we do, be sure to check out Homesteads and Homeschools, Free Markets Green Earth, Cannabis Heals Me, and This Week in Liberpods. We're living proof that libertarian doesn't mean washed up Republican.